get into Redding, California, you want to talk about Grandpa Kenny? No?
I know very little about him, except that he was sick and he was diabetic and he had cancer. I suspect that's one of the reasons why my grandmother couldn't date him and marry him even, was that he wasn't a threat to running away with her. Because she's the only daughter to get married. We have 11 daughters and one son. You'd think more than one girl would get married and one kid would get married.
Yeah. But he's not your grandfather, right?
Kenny is my grandfather.
Grandpa Kenny?
Right.
The one I met?
No, that was Cook.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's, well, who lived in Redding? It was Cook.
In Willits. It was Cook. Ralph Cook.
Oh, was there anyone that lived in Redding?
No.
Oh.
But Willits is right close to Redding.
Confusing them. Well, since we're near here, what can you tell me about Grandpa Cook? The one that I met.
The one you met. He was in the Navy for a long time, and he told me, after I kind of got to know him for a while, a long time, well, when you were with me, that he had been in one of the Polynesian islands and had fallen in love with one of the Polynesian girls there, and they were wanting to get married and everything, and he got stationed there for quite a while, and he went to marry the girl, and the king of the island, or the head person of the island, came to him, because that was his daughter, and said, no, it'd be better if she married somebody from the island and stays here, and so heavenly hearted, he left there and came back to the United States and got out of the service. So he was living in the same apartment building as my grandmother was, and my grandmother had her little boy Bruce, who was my father, and Bruce was 12 or so, I guess, when they met, and Ralph used to take Bruce for long walks because Bruce didn't have a father and he had asthma, so he was he missed a lot of school. He went to private school for a while. Anyway, Ralph started taking him for walks, and got to know his mother, and eventually they got married. And there was kind of an age difference between the two of them, and they never had any children. And so after living in the San Francisco Bay Area, maybe he retired from the railroad. He was in the service for 20 years, then railroad for 20 years, and then retired, moved up to Willits, and got a little house in the middle of the forest, really in the middle of trees. He claimed the house had been a chicken house before, and he converted it into a house. So he was quite handy, and the house was large or small? Just the house that had a kitchen and front room, and
yeah,
I don't think I ever saw their bedroom. Maybe I did. And house or apartment. He had built a cabin like next to his house, not too far away from his house. So his best friend had a place to stay for a while. I never met the best friend. But it was very small. It had a bed and a kitchenette and a little bit of living space in it. And it had a lot of oak trees in it, around it. Beautiful property, and he lived at the very end of the street, so you go past the skunk line down a couple of blocks blocks and turned down a street and went down to the end of it, and that was his place. And he owned several acres. I think he owned 5 acres, but it seemed like a lot bigger than that because there was no fences or the lake on your side and my side.
Yeah.
And this is just one little bit of it.
Look at the covered docks down there.
Yeah.
Let's get snow.
He had to put in 2 wells. One well, the shallow well that had a lot of water, was very high sulfur, so he could use that for growing purposes and I guess washing dishes, definitely flushing toilets. And they had to dig a very deep well to get clear water. And that one didn't have so much water pressure in it, but that was for cooking and eating with.
Oh, more deer. Are those elk? That looked like it would be elk.
He had a Jeep, like a World War II Jeep that he would drive to and from work from, and the road they lived on was dirt and rutted and had hollows in it, and he drove it so often he knew exactly all the slow spots, so his wife said he would take off and there'd be a cloud of dust and he'd disappear, swerving back and forth across the road. Ralph.
Who said this?
Louise's mother, his wife, Grandma Cook.
Your dad's mother.
Dad's mother.
Oh.
That he knew the road so well they just swerved around it, and I think he said the city said he could fix it, but he had a Jeep. He wasn't going to get bogged down even in the wintertime.
So how do you know your dad's parents? When did you first meet them?
We used to visit them. My father's birthday is May 2nd, so he would take a week of vacation off. I know we went to Los Angeles. We took the week of May 2nd off work and drove up to see both grandparents and came back to Los Angeles every year. He also read a lot of California history books, and so he would try to go off the main road a little bit so he could see something that was historic for California. Educational, historical.
So they lived in San Francisco?
They lived in Berkeley. The grandparents lived in San Francisco. The
Cooks?
The Cooks. But I don't remember seeing them in San Francisco. I remember seeing them in Willits after they moved. And I remember them going there from Los Angeles.
Driving from Los Angeles, so you're between age 8 and 18.
18.
Driving from Los Angeles to Willits, California.
And to Oakland, and then back to...
And how often did you do this?
Every year, May 2nd.
And how long did you stay with them?
Oh, we never stayed with them. A couple hours.
You drove all that way and then you didn't stay?
Right.
The roads must have been different back then.
There was no freeways.
Were they all paved?
In fact, we never ate with either one of them either. We just stayed for an hour or two. My mother was really not social.
So was that the house that I visited then, that you visited?
Right, yes.
And it was every year between 8 and 18? 10 years? 10 visits?
Most of those years, I can't say, it seemed like every year, I can't. They took us out of school for it.
So you just visited at their house? Did you go out for dinner? Or
No. One time with Grandmother Kitty, we went out to dinner.
No, I'm talking about the Cooks.
No, we never went out to dinner with them.
You just stopped by for 2 hours?
Stopped by for about 2 hours and left again.
And that's how you, for 10 years, so 20 hours of knowing your grandparents growing up.
Yeah.
On your dad's side. So what do you remember about your grandmother Cook?
because Mother kind of encouraged me to take my sister for a walk around the property and look outside. Go look outside. You girls been cooped up in the car for so long. Why don't you go take a walk? So we walked around the fence outside and we came back and it was about time to go.
So where did you stay? In motels?
Motels. Roadside motels, exactly the same ones probably we're staying in on this trip.
Yeah.
They were a little newer then.
So when was the last time you saw your grandmother, Louise, cook?
Maybe when I took you up there. Yeah, that was the last time I saw either one of them really. And you were small, so it's been a long time ago.
You mean when I was 7 or 8? Because I thought she was already gone by then.
Wait, you may be remembering. Did you remember a large garden and stuff too?
I remember Grandpa Ralph.
Okay.
And he had a backyard with a bunch of trees in it. And to the right of his house there was a shed workshop. His house was gray in color and he had 2 faucets. One that spewed orange, amber colored water, and one that trickled clear water in his sink. That's what I drank out of. I remember red ring around the toilet where
I think you'd be about
well
6
water.
though, because I think Noah was being breastfed still.
Yes, I was 7. This is in
Okay.
71 when we left from Loretta Street. We drove up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 72, I think, 73, we repeated the journey a second time.
With Charles and
Yeah.
that.
And Ralph, I thought, was alone on both of those.
Yeah, he was.
And I don't know what
His
happened.
wife had died a long time before that.
So when was the last time you saw her?
When I was a child.
You're 15, 16?
17, 16, somewhere in there.
So that was
Okay, 1960 is when I graduated and I turned 18, so maybe 1958 or
58. Yeah, that's sort of the heyday of the motels, I think, roadside motels.
Well, Ralph had wonderful pictures of where he had had an early car and he'd gone to Yosemite when it first opened up as a park on dirt roads and traveled and stayed in the first hotel and he drove all over to see new things. He was very much a fan of John Muir and traveled all over the place just to see our great country and what it had to offer.
Well, I guess being ex-military. Now he's the one. He was a submariner.
Right.
For 20 years, and he retired from that, I think.
Right.
And then he worked
In the railroad.
in the
for 20
railroad
years.
for 20 years, the skunk route.
Not necessarily the skunk route, no, because he didn't move up to Willett still after he retired from the railroad.
Oh,
So he lived in San Francisco then.
so what did he do with the railroads? I think I remember him
don't
being
know.
on the trains, and I'm thinking wood for something. He did something with wood, and I don't remember clearly.
He said he was an ice cream man for a while too, between
really?
jobs.
I
That
never
he
knew
and
that.
his friend made the ice cream things. He didn't just make about any old thing. He'd just take some sort of sugar and water and flavoring and freeze them up somehow and I have no idea how I kept them cold and sold them, but it's like a great exciting adventure for him rather than a long-term job.
I'm sure as a submariner, he had lots and lots of obscure skills. Those guys are pretty interesting people generally.
Yeah, and he was a little wiry man, so he could easily live in a submarine. No, presumably his mother was raped somewhere along the line, and she never mentioned anything to him about him, and never had sex after that. Apparently, he was a big shot around town in San Francisco at the time too. So. I don't even know what his real name is.
Yeah. So Louise Cook. Do you know what her original name was?
Case. Well, his name is Case. I have no idea what her name is. I'm assuming it's Case, but I have no idea.
Oh, right. So Louise Case is my great-grandmother then.
Right.
And Violet's great-great-grandmother. And owns.
They came to California by boat, going around South America because the Panama Canal hadn't opened up yet. Covered wagons weren't coming over yet.
Oh, that's the family
Right.
that did that. Okay.
So there might be passage records of her if she came around by boat.
But probably
her
not his
parents.
case.
Well, it'd be fun to look up my father's birth certificate.
Yeah. Yeah, where were your parents born?
My father was born in San Francisco. My mother was born in Piedmont.
Do you know what year?
Yeah, because on my birth certificate it tells exactly how old they were when they had me, so I can count back from that.
And roughly off the top of your head, do you remember?
No.
Okay.
My mother was 23 or something, and my father was a little older than that. And I don't know where they got married either. I'm assuming they got married in Piedmont somewhere, or Oakland. But I can't prove that. But marriage records might be fun to look up too. Thanks to younger generation of your computers, we can look a lot of that stuff up where
Yeah, a lot of
it was
stuff is
unavailable.
a lot of stuff is not digitized. It's
Yeah.
just scanned.
Yeah,
So it's not searchable. It's just have to scan.
unless you know exactly where it is.
A lot of stuff is still on microfilm.
But I know the May 2nd part of my father's birthday, and we can count back from how old he was when I was born to find out the year. So we might be able to find his birth certificate. And that might give us his mother's name.
Right.
Because they must have had some money to come around by boat.